Yeah, yeah.
We are the epitome of Black female love.
It's easy for us as Black women to hold up the banner and the calls for everyone else. But again, who holds up the banner and the calls for us? What role does the church play in all of this stuff?
Is that we as a Black church are perpetuating the same behavior as a patriarchal evangelicals have been doing.
Right. And guess
church, but it's the sisters in the congregation.
But it's a lot of times it is the Black women who bring us down more, or push or try to silence our voices more in the Black church.
Hello, my sisters. Hello. Dr. Wright, my goodness. I'm going to start with you because I know we're talking about sex in the Black church today, but look like you in bed?
I'm in bed.
What are we doing today? What are we doing today?
Wonderful. It is so good to see everybody. Welcome to Timely Wisdom. As you know, our message this week is sex in the church, in the Black church. And so, okay, I'm going to do my disclaimer. I have this really big puppy who wanted to love on me, and I had to escape from her. I couldn't escape to the office because my husband was in there, so I escaped to the bedroom and closed the door. But perfect timing for this show.
So you in the bed because you running from
the puppy,
from the dog.
Leave it alone.
I'm sorry.
Leave it alone. Leave it alone. It's my own. My old folks used to say, leave alone. Leave alone.
Oh. It's cold here, y'all. I think I'm gonna have to send some to Dallas because it's cold here.
It's in the 60s here.
37.
Yeah, no, it's not that cold.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to get a little something for you.
Exactly. Right. Dr. Wright is in a whole bed. My goodness. Come on, let us know that you are here. Let us know where you're listening from. Come on, hello, our viewing audience. Come on, let us know that you're here. Let us know where you're listening from. And we're going to pray around that bed that Dr. Wright in. Dr. Bradford, how are you today?
Yeah, I'm in a chair. Yeah. I'm in a chair, you know. I'm doing good. I'm doing actually wonderful in a chair. Upright, ready to discuss this message today. Yeah. Can I say it again? In a chair, upright.
I need all y'all to
oh my goodness. Okay. Wallace, you can read that. It says Facebook user, but that's Natasha Robinson. She said because she's tight.
Let Wallace read it though.
I don't see it.
Okay. All right. Okay. How you doing today, Wallace? Let's see.
There it comes.
Let's see. We dealt with Herschel Walker on last week. I see that this week that Stacey Abrams and Kemp had their debate on this week. So how y'all leaning in Georgia?
It's still kind of close. We're praying in Georgia for Abrams. I was very disappointed in the debate between Walker and Warnock. I wanted him to knock him out, but verbally knock him out. I have recorded the Abrams. I have just not had an opportunity to see it.
Okay.
Wait a minute, Burns. Let's talk about that a little bit. Wallace, you mentioned you wanted Warnock to knock Walker out of the boat with his words, but he didn't. And this, what was something that he was deputized?
He was lying.
An honorary, somebody that can't use the badge, but I have a badge. Yeah.
He was
But
lying.
I mean, only y'all Republicans can get away with stuff like that.
I
Only y'all
thought
Republicans.
so.
Y'all.
What was the whole point? Was the point? Well, I am officer. What was the whole point? I'm still trying to find the point of it all, because
There was no point except to try and bring a prompt to discredit what Warnock said. I think in my mind, Warnock might have said, or he may not have known that the badge was honorary, but I think somehow in that discussion,
Who might not have known?
Warnock.
Oh yeah, his people, he knew. It was
Yeah,
Walker
that's
trying.
where I thought
Walker
he
was
should have
trying to
knocked him
prove.
slap out.
I mean,
but wasn't he told not to bring any props?
Yes.
From my understanding, he was told not to bring any props, but still.
But he walking around with his Captain America badge in his pocket.
Oh, right there.
No, hold on. You took the words out of my mouth.
He used it again.
All I wanted to do was
an interview between him and MSNBC.
That's all I wanted to do.
But he had to admit in that interview that no, it wasn't it was a play badge, right?
That's right.
Yeah, you know.
That's right.
I mean,
because the sheriff said that, wait a minute, this is an honorary badge and he has no authority.
But it doesn't matter
that he had authority.
But it doesn't matter.
He has this that issued that badge to him needs to retract it, because number one, it's abuse of authority or whatever little piece of authority he thinks he has.
Yes,
it is intimidating. It's misrepresentation, and he is nothing but an absolute liar. So that sheriff needs to take that badge right on back.
I believe you're right.
Okay. So it's almost like when you said Captain America, all I could see was this. You know, how in the world can, in this day and time, use fake stuff and still get elected? Lie. Well, it's been shown over.
Well, I mean,
steal. Right.
You abuse women.
You abuse women.
You don't take care of your children. And yet I don't understand how how football is God, and because he has a Heisman Trophy.
Wait, but you didn't
graduate.
graduate.
Only went to school to play football. I don't understand how he is so close in this senatorial race. I don't get it.
But here's the thing. There was a commentator the other day who spoke, and he said the reality about that is this. He said, you guys are focusing on Donald Trump. He said it ain't even about Donald Trump. It's about the Republican Party. They have an agenda. They want that agenda pushed forward. They use Trump. Trump was one that when he came in, he tried to make it be about him and do some things that he had absolutely no business doing. And the reality is they frankly could care less about Donald Trump. They frankly could care less about Herschel Walker. They just want puppets for that Republican agenda. And if it means using, who was it? I think it was, oh God, who was it? He prophesied years ago. He said that the village idiots shall become their leader. Okay, well, we see it. The village idiots trying to become the leader.
I mean, I hate to say the name, but 45, that he was just he was acting out what they believed in.
Right, and yes, Bradford, and the village idiots can't become, in America, they become the leaders because of those folk who don't vote, and so they vote by not voting. So it's not by happenstance that the village idiots become leaders. It's because there's too many of us who either agree with the with the idiot or their ideology, or we choose not to vote because we say our vote doesn't matter. And again, hopefully in Georgia, that won't be the case when they saw how close it was in regard to the presidential side. But y'all...
Here's the issue, Burns. there are a lot of Black men in this state, and it has been confirmed by some commentators on MSNBC that say Black men are saying nothing has changed. We voted for Warnock, nothing changed. And to me, it's idiotic to think that 1-2 year term can erase 400-500 years of oppression.
Of foolishness. Exactly.
Yes, it doesn't make sense to me, and I don't understand how they continue to use that as a means or reason for not voting or not voting for their best interests.
Wow. So you just said oppression. So let's get into this oppression in the church. We have a guest that's backstage, and some of y'all
What a major segue. That was good. That was good. That was good.
Some of y'all are oppressed in the church, and Wright wants to demonstrate what our guest is talking about today. So that is why she's in the bed. We just want to know that the bed is something that Wright decided to do on today. Just need to throw that in again for you all. Our guest that's backstage on today, Dr. Daryl L. Jones, was born and raised and lives in the ATL in Atlanta, Georgia, along with his wife, Tisa. They are blessed to have 4 wonderful children and 5 beautiful grandchildren. He currently serves a group of wonderful people as the senior pastor of Champions for Christ Christian Church, located in Atlanta, Georgia. He and his wife started Champions for Christ in 2011 with a few family members and some friends. He has earned his Bachelor of Science degree from Morris Brown College. He has his Master's of Divinity degree in Pastoral Care and Psychology of Religion from the Morehouse School of Religion at the ITC in Atlanta, Georgia. And he's received his Doctor of Ministry degree in Leadership Administration from Liberty University. He is the owner of Be Better on Purpose, a registered organization with the United States Patent and Trademark Office. Be Better on Purpose serves as the parent organization for his online platform. He has reached people around the world through his 30 years of ministry. Today, I am very excited to present someone that I was able to travel the seminary halls with at the ITC, and he is here today to talk about his book, Sex Education and the African American Church. So will you all welcome our guest on today, the Dr. Daryl L. Jones, here to talk about sex and the Black church. Sex and the Black church. And so our co-host on today have some wonderful questions, but I just want to open with this, and then let's hear from them on today. Dr. Jones, first I want to say to you, hey, it's so good to see you.
It is so good. It's been so long since we've seen each other.
It's been a while. We used to play tennis.
How you giving me all I need? I can't thank him enough. Stood by me with
Dr. Wallace. You said it
was
ain't
not me this time. It was not me this time.
So Dr. Jones and I, those who know me well, know that I absolutely love tennis. And our paths not only merged in the classroom, but on the tennis courts. And so we spend hours of what we call rejuvenating ourselves, playing tennis, doubles, mixed doubles, and just getting to know each other in our mind and our spirit, being strong. And I'm just grateful for this longtime friend of mine. And so we want to open first with asking this question now. We've been in this pandemic. Hopefully we're out of this pandemic. How have you been dealing with COVID in these COVID streets?
You know, I first started off unbelieving. I thought it was some type of plot. I didn't think it was real, but I was always cautious. So I said, well, just in case. So I had the whole just in case mentality for quite a while until I started seeing people get sick, seeing people having to do funerals and attend other funerals about people who supposedly had died from it. And it was enough to keep me off the streets. So I made up my mind that I'm staying off the streets just in case. So I was unsure about the vaccine originally, but again, just in case, I said, well, I've taken some other stuff before that I was unsure about. So let me just try this. So I decided to go into the vaccines and the boosters. But one thing I've done, I really stayed away from a lot of mass groups of people. Our church, we went online and stayed online. We tried to come back for a couple of occasions, but we realized that we'd rather stay online and be a little safer. And plus, I think we began to like each other more when we was worshiping online than we did in person. So stayed online a little bit about that. I'm grateful. I've never tested positive for it. Never had any of the symptoms, anything. Me, nor my wife, my kids, they're younger, so they thought they were a little invincible. So they were out what we sometimes call raw dogging, just going out there with no mask on and being all around each other and everything. But I took it serious, and I still take it seriously now. And I move a little bit more, but I try to avoid environments where I'm enclosed for more than about 30 minutes. I try to stay away from those type of environments, but that's pretty much how I've managed it. And I just let people live. I said, you know, you got to make up your own mind how you want to treat this. But this is what I'm doing. And so far it's worked because I've never had it, none of the symptoms. So I'm pretty good with it.
Wow. Awesome. All right, then let me ask in this opening question. Your book, Sex Education, African American Church First. Whoa, right. You what? Okay. It's being widely discussed. And so why is this forward thinking 21st century, why is sex education still an issue in the Black church?
You know, I wish I could agree and say it's forward thinking, but based off a lot of response I get, I don't know how, maybe it's forward thinking to some of us who understand it, but to the masses, I still don't think it's forward thinking. This happened years ago when I got ready to write my dissertation. I wrote my dissertation on this, and this book is the end result of the dissertation that still didn't get some of the traction that I thought it would, because when I was going through this whole process, I would interview pastors and I would talk to other church leaders, not only in my church, but in different churches. And people didn't really want to talk about it. They didn't want me to come and teach Bible study on it. They didn't want me to preach about it nowhere. And when I would get invited, some actually say, now I'm coming up here talking this sex stuff. We know you like talking about this sex stuff. And that was what I got from some church leaders. But it was just interesting. Growing up, I'd say I got fascinated about sex at an early age. And I got fascinated because it was something that, as a male, I thought it was something good. So as I got older, I started seeing a lot of things that happened in the churches. I started looking at people who looked like they belonged to some parents that wasn't their parent. And, you know, I started seeing and hearing about how certain people were involved and certain people who wasn't their spouses and significant others and things like that. So I say, you know, and even going to the fact that we have, how do I say it? We have some sexual issues in the church from the gay perspective, from the straight perspective, from those who don't do sex at all. And I just started wondering, how is all this happening in the church and no one ever said anything about it? You know, you can look around the church and you can see who were involved with each other. You know, you might not know it exactly, but you can tell there was some type of relationship going on that was probably frowned upon by somebody who would have understood what was really happening. So I just started thinking about, you know, we've let sex have too much power and control in our life. And what can we do about it in the church? I got tired of hearing about people talking about, yeah, you know, that's his girlfriend. His wife don't know about her. You know, she's sleeping with so-and-so. So, you know, we start hearing all these sex stories. So I started thinking it's too much power given to sex. So let's start finding out why we have this kind of control that sex have. When I got ready to write the dissertation, I wanted to write about it from that perspective. But my, I guess we call them our mentors, our dissertation committee. They thought it was too secular. Now, bear in mind, I'm at Liberty University, and I'll pause. So I'm at Liberty University, one of the first African Americans in their doctoral ministry program, and I want to talk about sex in the Black church. Dr. Falwell was still there at the time. So, I don't have to say too much about that, and I don't know how far this will go with that. But anyway. So even when I wrote the dissertation at graduation, they would read everybody's announcement for us what their dissertation was about. Not only did they not read mine, they didn't even have it listed in the bulletin because of the title of my dissertation. What they told me, they thought I wasn't going to appear for graduation, so that's the reason they didn't put it in the bulletin and then announce it.
Are you serious? Are you serious?
I kid you not.
Liberty.
So, I said it's just not the African American church that have issues with sex in the church. I think it's all the churches for the most part. So this book is something that just been up in me. And plus, when I was younger, and even not so young, I've always liked talking about sex. I always, when I was younger, to me, I felt like sex was more appreciated if you could communicate what it means to you. So I used to always want to talk about it. And when I was younger, let me show you. When I was young, I used to like to whisper sweet nothings sexually to ladies and things, because I just thought when you communicate what it means to you, it could be more meaningful. So that's how all this got started on sex. And the African American church, that was more out of a rebellion for me, because I was mad that nobody ever wanted to talk about what sex means and what it does to our community.
Well, the boundaries are often being crossed in the church, and they are crossed not only in the Black church, but they are crossed in all churches.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to me that Falwell and the religious right have all of these promiscuous and boundary crossing and going with somebody else and while they're married, some even having children.
Yeah.
So I think even in the biblical text, we have folk that's got problems with crossing boundaries, starting with the one that Israel think is their
David
king.
Yeah.
Had issues with crossing boundaries and having sex with people who they were not married to.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I thought that just interested me, the whole phenomenon about sex. And as a African American male, I understand what sex does for us as men. I don't understand it fully from a women perspective, but we were taught early age. I tell the story often. I was taught at a very young age about the joys of what it means for a man to be able to be sexually active, sexually empowering, and sexually dominant. I was taught all those things at an early age. So I was a young boy, couldn't wait for my first experience sexually, even though it took a lot longer than it took a lot longer than I would have hoped it would have. But I was taught at a very early age. And I said, why would y'all teach me something about this? And I would have to wait so long for it, So it's just so much power. And these people who go to church, read the Bible, study, Christian people. It wasn't no people who didn't participate in church that taught us stuff like that. In the barbershop, in the community, in the churches, we are often taught, especially when there are no women around, about how men are supposed to be sexually. So, but it was never from an academic perspective. It was never from an intellectual perspective. It was just always about this is how we do it.
Yeah, I was listening to the radio just the other day, and I don't even know the person's, but somehow one of the broadcasters said that he was going to lock his daughter up because she watched some video, but now he praised his son for watching the same video. But when it came to his daughter, it was inappropriate according to him.
And that's so unfortunate. When my kids were young, they thought I overdid it when I explained sex education to them because I taught to them very early, and I had books, I had reference. We didn't have a whole lot back then besides Master and Johnson and a few other. Dr. Ruth was around back then, but I taught it to them, and I found a lot. I found some resources just to share it with them so they won't be confused when they got older. I don't know how much they paid attention to it, but they do remember being taught sex education. And I was a health teacher for a while when I was even at ITC. I was teaching at a private Christian school, so it was just interesting sharing stuff like that with some of those. And they still, it's like, what? How else are we gonna learn it if we don't learn it in an environment that's safe, like the church, the school? Most parents don't feel comfortable teaching it, so where are we gonna learn it?
And so with you saying that, do you then feel that the school's education system have a responsibility to teach sex education to our children, or should that responsibility be on the church?
I think they have a responsibility to make sure that parents are equipped to teach it and they enhance what the parents teach based off the information they have available to them. If the school system were to, like, they give up kids homework and parents end up doing most of the homework with the kids, if they had some type of plan like that for sex education, it would be better because then it's a partnership teaching it as opposed to the school just teaching something so important like sex education.
Dr. Jones, going back to what Dr. Wallace was alluded to earlier, why is the dynamics so different between the boys and the girls? The boys are celebrated and pushed on, and the girls get a title. You know, they get them little names if they're caught out of character.
I think men don't really understand women, males don't understand females because we put female on a pedestal when it comes to sexuality for the most part. We think that they only supposed to be satisfied with their husband when they waited all their life and then experience it with that husband only, as opposed to men. We feel like we need to practice before we get to the point of being a husband. And it's an unfair mindset thinking that we can go out and do whatever we want to do, but the female can't. And then when it gets time to get married, we get upset at the female because she don't have the training we think she should have had sexually. So men eventually go back out to people who have already been trained sexually, as opposed to being with their wife.
Wow.
Hey, no. You said that fast. Say that again. Say what you just said again. You said that fast.
So we want our women to be pure, no one to have touched them, but we out there getting all this practice in. So now we get married, and if the wife is not experienced, which she shouldn't be for the most part, if she's never been with a partner, and we're used to certain things because we've had other female partners, now we're dissatisfied. So you step outside of that with somebody who you think is more experienced in doing things that you wanted done, as opposed to educating her the way you got educated with your practice. Us saying, okay, I got practice, I'm gonna let you have 2 years of practice and then come back to me. That don't work that way.
That's powerful. That's powerful because it's what did they say? Who buys a car without test driving?
Exactly.
Right.
And then if you think about it from that perspective, men, it's hard for us to accept the fact that she said we're not the only one and we're not the greatest, the latest, the best inspiration she ever had in her life. And it's hard for men because of the ego that men have been allowed to build and nurture. And we all are guilty of it. I can say all. I try to stay away from alls and never, but most of us are guilty of that.
There's a question in the chat. It says, "Whatever happened to married couples discovering together?" What a concept.
Well, I think what happens in that situation, we come from different environments. If I come from an environment where sex is real important, and you come from an environment where faith is real important, it's going to be hard for us to discover it together.
Wow.
Wait, say more about that. Say a little more about that. Go deeper.
If I'm from a family where real men have more than one woman. You know, the more women you have, the more of a man you are. And if you're from a family whereas you believe sex is safe for marriage and sex is this important entity that God has brought together and it's special with God in the midst, and to men, it's only recreation and dominance and climatic, it's hard to be together on the same page with that.
So then that I hear what you're saying. One of the questions that one of the questions that's on the board is
Well, right. Hold on a second before you get that. With you, what you just said. So, what role then has the church played in this? And based on that role, is the church playing a role for there actually to be healthy marriages or healthy relationships, or is what the church doing actually doing the opposite?
I think it depends on the church leadership. If the church belongs to a connected body versus a church that belongs where it's its own governing body. And most churches, unfortunately, finances ranks higher than relationships.
oh,
So,
he said
and,
that.
and to give an example, when you see a couple gets married, say when a couple is married in the church, and for some reason, if that couple divorced, some of the thought pattern goes through the church leadership is, okay, we have to keep them together, especially if they are a great tithing and giving couple.
Wow.
And then on top of that, a lot of time the church leadership will lean on the side of the one who has the most finances between the two in the couple.
My
Wow.
God, that's true.
One of you mentioned apparently earlier real men, and so one of our viewers says real men. What's a real man?
My perspective of that is a real man is one who's seeking God and trying to live his life according to what God has allowed him to understand who he is.
Wow. So going back to what you said about the nature of the male and how he operates, tell us what's the difference between having sex and making love. The Bible says that marriage is honorable, the bed undefiled. But if everybody's having sex, when do they get to making love?
My understanding, and this is me talking, making love is not necessarily sex.
There we go.
Making love is not necessarily sex. The Bible don't talk about making love. I hadn't seen it yet.
Keep going.
Okay. So people say, what's the difference between sex and making love? It depends on the two people having sex and what they call it.
So the definition is personal.
It's personal. It's semantics. It's whatever you want it to be to get it to be what it need it to be.
Dr. Burns, you holding your head.
No, I'm just tickled, and so no, keep talking.
You know, it's interesting when there was a comedian once who talks about how he got caught in a relationship that he shouldn't have been in. So he had to explain it to his wife, and he told his wife, "I make love to you. I had sex with her."
Okay.
As if it's okay to have sex with someone else versus making love.
Yes.
Well, you say, Dr. Wallace, it's okay, but what I've heard from Dr. Jones thus far is that you know, for that he was doing a play on words, but I want you to kind of go back to the difference of how men are raised and from boys to men,
Yes.
and what the expectation of the boys to men are compared to the expectations of the woman or
Mm.
girl to woman, and then what that expectation crossing now into that marriage bed, right? Can you just can you plow through that just a little
Okay.
bit more?
uh, I know we're in a cancel culture, so I'm gonna try to be as open and honest as possible and not really caring about the council because I don't think my platform is that big anyway. But growing up as men in the community and the era that I grew up in, the main goal for a lot of fathers and men in your life was I want my son, I want my nephew, I want my cousin to be a straight male who love women.
Mm.
So they would make sure that you had opportunity to have sex at an early age, possibly. They would make opportunity to make sure that if you got caught having sex, they would try to ease the pain of the mother catching you as opposed to if they caught you. So it's a different dynamic with boys having sex at an early age, being taught sexually as opposed to girls. It's almost like if a girl get caught having sex, it's a shame. And it's not a shame. She's human, just like that male. And we decide to put the emphasis on if it's okay for the male to be taught one thing and the female to taught another thing. And I think for too long, the husband and the wife, or the mother and the father, have not always agreed. But instead of fighting, arguing, trying to come to some understanding, they just let whoever the dominant was rule in how it was communicated.
Mm. Wow.
Uh, One of our viewers asked, "What is your view concerning adult toys?"
Adult toys. What goes on? Well, let me kind of qualify this. What goes on behind closed doors between two consenting adults, I have no issue with it at all. Toys or whatever. The only issue I have is someone who's not consenting and children.
Oh,
Well, no, and children, not on and children. I have issue with children. So
yeah.
between two adults, toys, role playing, enhancements, whatever needed. If that's what you need to make your relationship what it should be, that's up to you.
Dr. Jones, do you think our inability to process or to have these type of discussions has opened us up for some of the things that's taken place in legislature, like these certain Republican men, bless their hearts, that want to lower the age of consent to 12 years old?
I believe with legislation, legislating somebody's body, I still find problematic, be it through sex, lowering the age of consent, even with what they call statutory situations of statutory rape. I think we legislate with good intention sometimes, but I think we miss the mark often.
Wow.
Wait,
I-
you said we
I-
legislate with good intentions?
I think it's good intentions because when you hear some little kid got raped, you're angry, you're mad. That needs to be a law in the book to keep this from happening again. But in the midst of that, you don't understand when you try to make some single situation a whole situation, there are a lot of missing variables that go on that sometimes we don't always see.
Okay. Yeah, I agree.
But let's
Go
talk
ahead,
about the
Wallace.
legislating probably morality versus or someone's body, because the Supreme Court just said it is a law, and many states are hampering down on that to restrict abortion even more. But it's okay for them to legislate often a female body, but they don't legislate the male body. And sex happens with two people, whether they same sex or not. It's still two people usually, or unless you're having an orgy, that there's something to be said about legislating one body versus not legislating the other.
You know, I have sometimes what I call warped sense of humor. So my thing in response to that is, if you go legislate women body like that, why are we not legislating ejaculation?
Oh,
I'm sorry.
somebody want to know.
Because that's how I don't want to say ridiculous, but that's how far out that sound to me. How you go legislate something, especially considering these are people's bodies. Sometimes things happen by mistake. Sometimes things happen against their will. And that's just how crazy that sounds to me. Even though it sounds crazy trying to legislate men ejaculation, but you're legislating women body who happen to get pregnant. We can't get pregnant as a male.
Mm.
So let me ask you this. Catching the tail of what Dr. Wallace has just said, that somehow abortion has become a morality issue, into a morality that gets to legislature. And then anyone who questions it, then it becomes a question of your religion or your faith. Mm-hmm. My question is this, is that how has abortion become so centered? But yet here we are on this show talking about sex in the Black church, and you even shared about, in receipt of your doctorate work and the day of the recognition of this hush hush. So how has abortion become such a big issue when the church just doesn't talk about sex in the first place?
I found out this term of a profession called lobbyists. And lobbyists have a lot of control and power. And whatever lobbyists trying to push, they have a lot of money behind it. It just so happened to be now we're back in the abortion era. If you notice, whenever we're going through certain political cycles, usually wherever the president home state is, that's the issues that get pushed the most through Congress. When we had Carter, it was agriculture. When you had the Bush, it was oil. When you had the Clinton, it was healthcare. So, people push issues based off of their agendas a lot of time. The Republicans have always been, for the most part, they want to be Christian founded, but only certain levels or certain degrees of Christianity they want to push. They don't want to push discrimination. They don't want to push those type of things. So they push things that's important to them. And one just happened to be abortion for some reason.
Wow. There is a group called ALEC, ALEC, which is a very large group that does lobbying and there's a bigger picture. There's a bigger picture, and our vote plays a big part of that. It's very important that we vote and that our voices get heard. Someone I think it's Attorney Robinson said, "Man, I like this dude. I mean, doctor."
Thank you.
So let me ask you this. What would you say, or how would you address a child within your congregation who is openly promiscuous, openly acting out, or openly gay?
I'm glad you said child as opposed to a male or female or a girl, because when I first heard it, when you think being promiscuous, you instantly, a lot of times we think the female, because we don't think males are promiscuous. We think males are just being males or boys are just being boys. So I'm glad you said child. I think whenever you're acting out, you want to try to get to the root of whatever it is and why you're acting out because of it. So a lot of times, if a child is acting out being promiscuous and they acting it out, you want to find out what's causing this. Is this a family generational issue that maybe mom and dad and grandma and granddad, they was both like that? Is it some type of environmental issue? Growing up, I had this course called, it talked about nature and nurture. So you want to talk about, is this something that's nature or is this something nurture, and find out what's causing this. And once you find out what's causing it, try to get together a group of very qualified people to deal with it. Like now we're into the mental health movement. We need to get sexual therapists in our churches and get them opportunity to start teaching in our churches.
There's another question in the comment. So what if it is an adult acting out?
If it's an adult acting out, then it depends on the church body. Just like any church polity, you bring it before a small leadership group. After that, if that's not done, you bring it before the whole body and you have a vote on that person. That's how a lot of churches are set up if it's happening in the church. But again, going back to what I stated earlier, finances plays a big role in that as well. If that's a person whose family puts a lot of finances and money in the church, it's going to be handled differently than a person who barely comes, or family don't put that much money in the church. And it's unfortunate to say that, but it's so much proof where things like that happen.
Pastor Doreen Bethel out of Detroit, Michigan says, say that again. So true. The Bible never says making love when you bring God into your relationship, marriage, your sexual intimacy and interaction with your wife or husband. It is sanctioned by God, and you bring his liberty into your relationship and into your sex lives. God's presence in your lives and in your marriage and in your sexual intimacy creates liberty and freedom. Marriage is honorable and the bed is undefiled. We have liberty to engage sexually with our husband or wife.
Well said.
Very well stated. Yes. This is wow. This is a lot.
So how do you think that the church has been so closed-minded about sex?
Unfortunately, a lot of church leaders are not in position to communicate about sex without incriminating themselves.
Woo!
Say more. What do you mean? Say more.
You know, we see it often sometimes, especially those of us who are in church leadership. We have an idea of certain things that happen within the church, and we have the good old women network. I don't want to say the good old boy, I say women this time because I went to ITC. We had the good old girls network. So, you know, I can't tell on you because I don't want you to tell on me. So you have that kind of thing going on. So you try to just act as though it don't exist until it becomes an issue.
Wallace, you just gonna let that answer ride? Come on, Wallace.
You
I think she's in shock.
Woo! So who discerns whether it's an issue or not?
Usually it's women.
Well,
and if you think about it, whenever you say, you know, think about some of the church settings, we see attractive lady come in. She's not going to be allowed to come and sit on that front row with a red dress on and cross her legs because of the temptation that some people might think the pastor, the pulpit staff might get from her, even if it's just the fact that it's obstructing view. It might not be sexual at all, but it just, you know, there have been times that, and I share something that me and some male pastors have talked about sometime. There have been times in the middle of a sermon, you can get distracted by something, even if it's a thought. So you definitely don't want something like that to happen that's physical, that can cause you to be distracted when you're delivering God's message.
So you're saying that it's the women who make that decision?
Yeah, usually it's women, or if it's a male, like if you think about a lot of pastor-dominated led churches, reason a lot of men don't come for the most part because they don't feel as much of, and I don't want to say it like this, but I can't help but to say it. A lot of men stay away from the church because of the emphasis put on the male pastor and how he's able to excite women that men at home don't get to excite them the same way.
Well, and it has nothing to do with the number of women in most churches, especially in the Black church. It may have more women in the church, but it's not led by women in the church.
Yes. And you think about that from a perspective, that's something that I still struggle with. How is it's almost as how is that a bully can have so much power and no one decide we go gang up and we go jump the bully? So how is it that the women in churches, with all the money they bring, with all the family members they bring, they just allow church leadership to run the way it runs?
Yeah. I want to know that one too. Do you have a response? Do you have a response to your question? I want to know that really, because we, unfortunately, and I think you probably heard this during the intro to this show, is that women tend sometimes to buy into patriarchy more so than men, because they already have power, or it is that women tend to talk against oftentimes women in leadership or even being pastors, rather than, and it's okay that they demonize the woman.
Mm.
Often, Dr. Burns says, "Who's standing up for the women?"
Yeah,
and there's we instead of standing up, we're pushing down.
Mm-hmm.
and you know, I think a lot of times some women actually see that man as God, very God-like, and they don't see themselves the same way, which is an issue in another in its all in its own self, because he created us, she created us equal. So
that's Genesis 1.
Yeah.
I mean, in God's image, male and female, not just male.
Yeah.
Yet, because of patriarchy in the Jewish community, it is more male dominant information rather than looking at. I mean, it stops almost at Genesis 1, and we go into Genesis 2, where now the male is dominant over the female, and seemingly God ordained that.
Well, okay. Well, we have a few minutes left, and since you're talking about male dominance, you mentioned earlier about legislating ejaculation, and you mentioned to us backstage, and we do want our audience to hear this, is that during your dissertation work, you brought condoms to the church.
Yeah.
Okay, tell us why and how the people reacted.
Good.
A lot of times we always want to say we cherry pick the Bible. So we cherry pick the Bible, and we.
Do you really want to use the word cherry pick? And go ahead.
So we pull out what applies to us or what we want to apply to us. And yes, the Bible says, according to how we interpret it, that we're not to have sex until we get married. But just like the Bible always says, and we know everybody's not waiting to get married to have sex. And we know because they're not doing that, certain things happen, like pregnancies happen, diseases happen, and all other type of emotional issues happen because of sexuality. So with the condoms being about the church, my thing is, well, if y'all go have sex, at least be smart about it. So that was the mindset. I'm not telling you to have sex. If you ask me, I would say I prefer that you don't have sex until you get married. But how many people actually listen to everything that we communicate as church leaders?
Right.
So I said, I got the condoms. As a matter of fact, they were given to me. I forgot the name of the group that was helping me do my dissertation, but the condoms were given to me. So I had this big old basket next to the offering basket. Put the offering in, grab a condom if you want to. So,
Okay, before you finish this story, I need to know, did the offering increase that Sunday? Go ahead.
The offering did increase, but you know, you can tell people got a little anxious about that. And I'm saying we're in Atlanta here, and you know, you would think Atlanta was considered an open city at the time because we had Mayor Franklin as the mayor. So I thought we were open to a lot of great ideas, but we weren't open to the idea of sex and talking about it in the church, how to deal with sex in education, period.
And still not.
Still not.
So did you get any kind of verbal feedback from it? What was said? Was anything said to you? I mean,
well, some of the things that, well, a couple of people will come up to me and say, you know, I don't think that's right that you bringing condoms in here. And, you know, I have a hard time sometimes. I'm not always nice when I hear a stupid question. And I know they say there's no such thing as a stupid question, but really there are. So sometimes I have to just take a deep breath and say, you know, we'll talk about that later. So that would be my response after, we'll talk about that later. Because what I'm doing, I'm giving myself time to think, and I'm giving them time to think also, so we can have a better response in dealing with the question or the statement that was made as opposed to responding to it right then. But there are some people who just really, they might not have said nothing to me directly, but I could tell they felt a little uneasy about it. But these same people got grandkids having babies, kids having babies. They know they're having sex when they're at work and things like that, but they don't want to have the condom talk. They don't want to talk about sponges. They don't want to talk about none of the other things that we could do to help those who go do it anyway.
And these are the ones that are raising those grandbabies, because nobody wants to have that conversation, but it's a real conversation.
And they're raising the grandbabies because their child didn't have the education on sex that they should have had. They wouldn't have be raising these grandkids because their children are too young to raise them, might not be as qualified to raise them effectively yet.
And one of our viewers says, by your doing that, they say you are promoting premarital sex if you tell people to use protection.
I promote a lot of things in the church. So again, that's cherry picking. I promote tithing. People don't say I promote forgiveness. I promote caring for one another. But if this is what you want to dwell on out of all the things I promote, maybe it's you as opposed to what we're trying to teach.
One of our viewers wants to know, what's your take on masturbation?
Masturbation behind your own door, you do what you want to do. I don't think it's no bigger sin than fornication, adultery, stealing. Sin is sin. And if that's what you call sin, now if you're shameful in it, then that's your issue as well. But going back to what I stated earlier, how men practice, and then they want the women or the female to be pure and undefiled. How else are you going to get control as a male if you don't practice, if you don't have a sexual partner? So again, it's a cherry pick to me.
And I do know that dealing with children, many times when you major on the minor, they gravitate to the minor to make sure that they figure it out for themselves versus letting you tell them what shouldn't be done and what should be done. And granted, they need direction. But I, being the grandmother of 20-year girls, and many times my grandchildren will see my husband and I interact, give me a kiss or hug me or something, and they go, "Oh, golly, oh, why do you guys have to?" I said, if we wasn't doing all this, you wouldn't be here.
Exactly. And I'm glad you brought that up too, because that's another thing that I share now too. It's unfortunate that you see such a small percentage of heterosexual would display affectionate as opposed to other communities at how they communicate affection.
So very
true. Say more about that.
It's as though now heterosexual have been shamed. Maybe heterosexual have gotten so comfortable with that they don't do it anymore. And for those, like you say, some say an old preacher once said, some things are taught and some things are caught. And when you think about it from that perspective, you could teach people a lot and they might not get it, but what you think they didn't get is what they got. And I'll give an example. I could preach a sermon and I give all these great points, and you might have picked up on something that I said in a parenthetical thought. So
Thank you. Yeah. This has been awesome. I think Burns normally says, show the preacher, a person that you enjoyed the broadcast. Send us some hearts, and if you want the guests to come back, I think this might be one of those need to come back and finish some of this let us digest what you have offered, and so that we have some more questions when you come back. I really appreciate your openness, but until we deal with crossing boundaries in the church, and we actually call people out, it's not going to change.
Yeah, I agree. And I'll tell you something that I did that it was a funny situation. For the married couples in our church, we did a 30-day sex challenge where I told them to log, their encounters for 30 days. And some was excited about it, some felt kind of strange about it. But it was just something that I was doing during the dissertation process, which led to part of my writing. And I said, why is it that we so afraid? We do all these fit challenges, we do all these weight challenges. I said, why don't we do some challenges that could really make a difference in the lives of the people? There are some people who struggle sexually and don't know how to communicate with their spouses, with their partners. So why don't you do a 30-day and log and take notes of what was your feelings, what was your thoughts, was say grade and stuff like that. We just don't think about sex from that perspective. We think it's all about feelings, and that's why sex is not as powerful as it could be from a relationship perspective.
Mm-hmm. An intimacy perspective.
Exactly. Yes, even better. Intimacy.
Wow. Dr. Jones, I'd love for the conversation going. We have reached our time, but wow, this has been amazing. We're going to ask that you hang around backstage for us. And you all again hit the hearts, put it in the chat. He can see the chat. Thank you for this very, very frank and open conversation. Woo, ladies.
Well, yeah. So, yeah, very, not only a good kind of conversation, but intense as well. It's a much needed conversation in the life of the church. Next week, we have none other than Dr. Kevin Washington. Come on in the room at 5 Central Time, 6 Eastern. Same time, same place. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.